Hey guys, it's Centurion Master and welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're going to take a look at the Japanese Tier 8 destroyer, the Kagero. Now I've been working my way down the Japanese line for a while. Now it's taken me a while as well, but eventually I found my way at Tier 8 and I've currently got a Kagero. I was looking for a line to go down for destroyers. I'm habitually a battleship player. I might jump into the odd cruiser, but I just fancied having a go in a different sort of type of ship. Try and improve my skill sets generally as a player and just kind of get a better understanding of how the destroyer mechanics work to ultimately aid me in playing against them and supporting them. The Japanese line I felt best suited my style of play. I'm not an overly aggressive player, and I feel with the Japanese destroyers you can certainly keep your distance. You've got a really good set of torpedoes. Guns are okay, but it's not predominantly a gunship. I'd say it's 60 to 70% a torpedo ship, and just keeping that additional bit of distance, maximising your detection range and kind of spotting from distances kind of suits my style of play better, and ultimately I've had some pretty decent games and will continue to do so, I'm sure, as I move down towards tier 9. So let's have a quick look at the stats. Survivability score of 27, hit points of 15,100 is an improvement on your Katsuki. It's not a bad set of hit points to have, to be honest, for a destroyer, but as you can see by the armour, anywhere from 1 to 21mm. You're never going to play a destroyer with the intention of going toe to toe with another ship. Although it does benefit sometimes in the right scenario, because of how thin the actual armour is, to actually go broadside against the right target and probably chance those overpens rather than maybe taking the full penetration damage from front or rear end of a ship. But all in all, yeah, an improvement on your Katsuki at 15,100, but don't anticipate the armour doing you any favours. Artillery score of 24. Main battery is 3x2, 127mm. Got a reload time of 7 seconds, 180 degree turn time of 26.1 seconds, and a maximum dispersion of 80 metres. That's not bad. All in all, with a chance of fire at 7% and shell damage of 1800 of HE, that's not a bad set of guns. It's not brilliant. It's not an American destroyer, but it's good. It can kind of hold your own at close quarters if you get into those gun battles. Firing range of 9.4k. It's a bit of a decrease on your Katsuki, and I'm not really sure why they would decrease that range. I don't see the point in where you lose. I think it was 10.1 on your Katsuki, so a little bit of a downside to the guns, but all in all the shell, both AP and HE velocity is exactly the same. And they're okay. You are going to set a reasonable amount of fires in the ship if you can get yourself into a nice smoke screen tucked in behind the island, or you've got enough mutual support where maybe you're not complete focus. You can rack up a reasonable amount of damage, but predominantly it's probably going to be from setting fires or close quarters against slightly more armoured ships, possibly than a destroyer, maybe a lighter cruiser where you can actually potentially get some citadels, and you will do on occasions. Torpedoes score 31. You got those 2x4 610mm quads. Reload time of 100.8 seconds is a lot longer than your Katsuki. 180 degree turn time at 6 seconds, and maximum damage of just under 21,000. That's not bad at all. You can rack up a pretty decent game using these torpedoes if you can get yourself in the right situations. Torpedo range of 10k is pretty good. It's kind of above average, and it's a nice set to have. Not too long where the enemy have obviously got a lot of time to manoeuvre, or you're just basically shooting blind. You can make considered and concise attacks with the Kagero and have quite a lot of success with these torpedoes. Detectability range of them is 1.7. That's an additional 100 metres to the Katsuki, but as long as you're picking your targets, you're planning them in advance, it should be negligible. But occasionally, of course, that extra 100 metres is going to pay favour to the enemy's potential manoeuvres. Torpedo speed of 6 to 7 knots stays the same. Good speed, not the fastest, but certainly not the slowest. But all in all, I think generally as a set of torpedoes, they're a really good, well-balanced sort of like addition to the ship, and one you really need to start relying on and try and formulate your tactics and your planning based around using these torpedoes, certainly over your guns. Anti-aircraft defence 17, 10x1 25mm, Type 96. Again, I mean, same with your Katsuki. As I said in the Katsuki review, you're not an anti-aircraft ship. You're going to shoot down the occasional spotting plane. I know you've got a few more 3x3 25mm, but it's more of definitely a self-defense weapon, as most of them obviously are. But don't expect you're going to sort of like rack through squadrons of enemy CV aircraft, because it's kind of not going to happen. Maneuverability, score of 79, maximum speed of 35 knots. It's okay, it's not as quick as your cat ski, and it certainly doesn't feel as quick when you're on the game. Turning circle radius of 640 meters and a rudder shift time of 2.1 seconds makes it reasonably manoeuvrable, but that lack in top speed, where with your cat ski you could sort of like get in close, use your guns, maybe drop some torps off at slightly closer range. You normally had the speed to sort of like make a hasty retreat, certainly get enough distance between you and the enemy to give you enough chance to manoeuvre and possibly dodge shots. I feel you lack that a little bit in the Kagero, but again, forward planning, forward thinking, try and utilise your ship's strengths, which is, as I'm about to show you, the concealment and detectability range. Now this is a fully upgraded, as you can see on the screen, Kagero. So with the skills on the captain and the additional module, concealment module, I've got this down to 5.4 kilometers, and that is pretty good. That's certainly the best I've came across so far on a Japanese line. At this point I'm not sure if there's any better, but I'd be hard pressed to think if you can find one that's better, certainly on this line. You can stay as long as you're tactically aware, pay attention to the minimap and kind of know what you're doing. I mean, I'm not a brilliant destroyer player, but most of the time now I will stay undetected. It gives me a fantastic chance to sort of like get torpedoes off. Detectability range by air 3.1k, assured detectability range 2k, it's pretty standard, and obviously detectability after firing main guns in smoke 2.5k, again pretty standard. So I think the main strengths of the Akatsuki: fantastic torpedoes, fantastic concealment. You've got to somehow get a balance between the two. Utilise those 10k 67 knot torpedoes against just not being seen with that 5.4k detection, and only really using your guns in obvious self-defense, or where you feel you've got enough cover, obviously in smoke behind an island, or enough mutual support where you can get rounds down to try and harass, maybe set some fires on slightly larger targets to maybe try and deter them from continuing their advance. So all in all, not a bad little ship. I'll just go over the upgrades that I've got on here. Obviously it'll be down to you what you decide to pick, but I'll explain what I've got and why. Excuse me. Main armaments modification 1. Obviously that extra bit of repair time to main battery and torpedo tubes. Certainly for torpedo tubes, I can't afford those to be out for much in any of the games. Propulsion modification 1, as you can see there, increases survivability and accelerates repairs of the engine. I mean, I do have a last stand on this ship, so I can obviously continue moving with penalty, but you want to get these up as quick as you can. You can't afford to be static in the sea. As a destroyer, you'll just get taken out really quickly. Aiming systems modification 1, increases the firing accuracy of the secondary battery and main battery, accelerates the traverse speed of torpedo tubes, and that's ultimately what I got it for. The quicker I can get those torpedoes on target, the better it will be for me. Certainly in closer engagements, where maybe I've been surprised by an enemy destroyer or a cruiser that's come around the back of an island formation, etc. I want to get those torpedoes on target as quick as I can, and that's why I've decided to pick these. Steering gears modification 2 reduces rudder shift time by 20%. Again, anything you can do to assist your ship in moving from side to side a little bit quicker will assist you in potentially dodging torpedoes and certainly incoming fire, and I think it's an absolute must on a ship. There are some ships out there with fantastic rudder shift times and just general better turning circles, but I just feel personally it gives me that little bit more assurance that I'm going to be able to make those turns a little bit quicker and possibly save myself from being sunk. Concealment system modification 1 reduces your ship detectability range by an additional 10%, and by having this on there I've obviously got it down to that 5.4k, which is absolutely incredible, and I think in this particular ship, and certainly in every Japanese destroyer I've played so far, the better the detection, the better the chance you have in major success in the games. Have a quick look at the captain. So we've got priority target. I think the more or the earlier warning you've got of how many people are going to open up on you is a bit of an advantage. Obviously, if maybe just as 1 or possibly 2, you might be able to consolidate your position and gamble the chance you might be able to avoid a bit of shots. But when you get to 3, 4 and 5s, you really want to be turning around and getting out of there. Preventive maintenance, or anything you can do to sort of like risk or minus the risk of incapacitation to modules is an absolute must. That's why I've got that one on there. Last stand, when the engine or steering gears are incapacitated, they continue to operate but with a penalty. I think key components of a ship, your steering, your engine, are an absolute must. You've got to have those in action at all times, and it's worth a penalty. You've really got to have that on there. Torpedoes, again, just minus the 10% to reload time is why I've got it attached to my ship and my captain. Torpedoes are absolutely key to me and my style of play. So as soon as I can get those reloaded, as soon as I can get them turned onto target quicker, anything I can give my captain, anything I can put on my ship, I definitely will do to aid in my accuracy and reload time of the torpedoes. And finally, last but not least, the Concealment Expert. So an additional minus 10% to detectability of my destroyer is absolutely vital. Again, contributing to that 5.4k detection range, which is an absolute must. So all in all, I think it's a pretty good ship. I'm enjoying playing it. It's well rounded, well balanced. It's definitely leans towards the torpedo style of play over the guns, but don't count them off. In the right situation, the guns are effective. You can rack up some damage, you can deter enemies. Certainly the right targets, fellow destroyers, lighter cruisers, they can be pretty effective. Torpedoes generally, and using your stealth is where you want to go. And definitely if you're going to go down this line and get around this sort of tier, that's my personal advice. Focus on your torpedoes, stay stealthy, and only really use your guns in situations where you can absolutely guarantee your safety. What we'll do now is we'll just jump into some gameplay. I showed you a game I played earlier on. It's a pretty decent game. Put some of the things we've discussed into practice, and I'll obviously talk you through what decisions I've made and why. Okay, here's some gameplay. Right then guys, here we are on Land of Fire, and this is a domination game. I've teamed up with Fablue, again, as usual. She's in a tier 7 Mahan, and I'm back in a Kagero. So this was a pretty decent game I played earlier on. A game I sort of like played off the cuff last minute before we went out somewhere. And it turned out to be half decent. As I said, I'm not a brilliant destroyer player. I'm getting better. But this was one of the better games I've had, certainly one of the better games I've had in the Kagero. So at this point, as usual, primary objective, try and make your way forward. Get yourself into a cap, try and do whatever you can to take that cap, and then spot whatever you can for the friendly ships in the local area. On this occasion, no one's going to come with me. We're all going to go and head off towards sea, leaving me and Faye to do all the work on this side. Again, just considering, I mean, you can see we're now at 37.9 knots. I mean, it's not slow. I've got my speed boost on, but it just doesn't feel fast. When I had a speed boost on the Akatsuki, it felt like I was getting somewhere. When I'm still going best part of 38 knots. But there's going to be times where you're trying to run from slightly faster cruisers, and they're kind of going to run you down. It's going to be very hard to escape, and that's what I found on a few occasions. So it's not a fastest of ships. I mean, I'm really having to use that additional perk to get myself moving here. Try and get to the cap a little bit earlier. I think it's always important to try and get to cap first, but it's always a time when I'm most nervous when playing games, when I'm approaching a cap. And what I'm going to do on this occasion is just try and get in, just touch those cones, and then hug the outskirts to minimise or reduce the potential distance I'm going to have if I am spotted by planes or ship. So here we go, it's going to tuck in now. Faye's decided she's going to try and head off towards B, but ultimately I think has to hang around here to support me. A bit worried about those planes at the rear. For some reason I just can't stop looking at them, just desperately trying to keep tabs of that detection range. But there we have a Shimakaze in the distance, and again we're inside that 5.4, so we get a couple of shots off, try and deter him from making his advance, and then where we can just get some torpedoes off to try and shield us. Don't always have to have a target in sight to launch your torpedoes. I mean, common approach routes is also a good place to let your first couple of salvos off if there's no sort of like obvious targets. I think on this occasion I'm quite lucky because I do feel that that's the sort of approach route an enemy's going to take trying to get into A. So we'll see if we have any joy come back from those. Again, spotted again by another Shimakaze here with torpedoes on their way. So we'll do our best to try and manoeuvre our way and dodge those shots, whilst also keeping tabs on his torpedoes. But we take out an absolutely massive hit there. So minutes into the game, and we're already down to a quarter of our health. It's not the best start, but there we have one torpedo hit with flooding caused on an unsuspecting enemy in the distance. It's kind of like lightened my mood a little bit at this point. I don't really want to give up on A. I mean, I'm obviously outmaneuvered, outpowered now with those two battleships heading down towards it, but at the same time that presents opportunities and it does present a target. So we're inside the 10k range now, and I'm going to have to try and look for some opportunities to get these torpedoes off. I mean, at this point using the guns would just be pointless. I mean, they are in range, but I'm not going to do enough damage. They're going to be alerted to my location, and that would just spell trouble. So this is definitely a situation where you want to leave the guns alone, remain stealthy, and where you can get those torpedoes off. You may notice I'm not running smoke on this boat at the moment. I ordinarily would like to have smoke. I do use smoke a lot, but I am trying the Torpedo Booster. I've heard a lot about it, and this is one occasion where I do decide to use it. It gives you that quick, I think 7 or 8 second reload to get that second salvo off. So we can have up to 16 torpedoes in the water, which is obviously deadly to anybody. And there we have 16 torpedoes heading towards that enemy battleship, as we're detected again by that Shimakaze. So we're going to hot tail it out of here. Luckily for me, phase laid some smoke for me to move into, and just as well. And there's the first couple of hits. Some big damage on that Montana. There's a third. It's up to 58,000 damage. And he's taken down, so 4 torpedo hits, just under 79,000 damage in the blink of an eye, with some decent torpedoes, some consideration to the enemy approach. You can rack up some decent damage with just a couple of salvos, and that's why I'm really starting to love the Destroyer game. Don't feel like you have to work as hard always for a decent damage return. I've done a decent job of trying to avoid these torpedoes. And there's Faye, dead on this occasion, but we're thankful she laid that smoke screen. Okay, so we've got C cap secured, B cap uncontested, and A cap in the hands of the enemy. So at this point we're 461 cap points to 234, with 2 ships down to our 1. So we're in a decent position. Kind of all our ships are congregated on the eastern side, so I'm going to try and head towards B now. See if there's anything I can do to maybe take this cap. I think A's kind of, at this point I just don't have enough support to risk going back over there. So I'm going to try and hug that mutual support a bit more. And then just see if I can, especially with such limited health, I'm going to need additional protection as the game advances. So this is kind of habitually how I normally play my Destroyer. Try and stay at all times out of range of the enemy, out of sight, stay undetected. I mean, obviously it's situational dependent, but get into B, cap, stay as far as far away as I can from enemy ships, and just wherever possible look for opportunities to get your torpedoes off to maximise your damage, and preferably the bigger the target the better. And speaking of which, here's a enemy battleship at a distance, but it looks like he's turned away. So again, trying to control the centre of the map. I think the team's in a reasonable position at the minute. Each cap readily accessible if we need to move into either. Now, it's a really good ship, the Kagero. I really like the Kagero. I mean, the Katsuki was a fantastic ship. I kind of moved up with a little bit of trepidation, not knowing really whether this was going to be the ship for me, whether it was going to be, having sort of looked at some of the stats in advance. But I've not been let down. I'm a little bit disappointed by the speed, and I think the guns could have a slightly longer range. I kind of don't see why moving up a tier you have to sort of like lose some of that gun range. But as I said, for me anyway, if I'm going to focus on the torpedoes, I suppose it's It's not all that important, but it's a really well-rounded and well-balanced destroyer. Does lean towards the torpedoes. I think almost all of my success in this game does come from torpedoes. Just sort of like verify that point. But it's a really good ship. About detection range again at 5.4k, I can't stress enough just how fantastic that is. And I'm pretty sure it'll save my bacon on more than one occasion. Because as I said before, I'm not the best torpedo player or destroyer player. And here we have some potential targets going around now, really trying to get myself into a position where when that target reappears, I can potentially get some torpedoes off. Again, at 10k range, 67 knot speeds. A fantastic attribute to have. And there we go, get some off. And again, we're going to go straight into a torpedo boost. But I think at this point now, it's probably wasn't going to be a wise move to get them off. So I adjust in a tad. I mean, I was anticipating this ship turning back in. There's not really much out there for him to continue on his current path. If you want to impact the game, you're going to have to sort of relocate and push towards caps at some point. But I held on to those second set of torpedoes, and I'm glad I did, because there was no way they were going to hit. And now we've got a slightly better target in the distance in Megami. Now, although he's out of range at this point at 10.6, 10.7k, whatever that was, he's heading in this direction, and he will be doing so at a decent speed, so get them off. Don't run the risk of getting too close. You know, as ships do advance, they will run into torpedoes, so take that into consideration as well. And hopefully he continues on, and we can do a bit more damage. So just under 79,000 damage, a good cap points lead, all 3 caps secure now. All the enemy running for the North Pole, so we're not in too much danger from losing those caps. I think it's important at this point that we just stay composed, pick our targets, especially myself as a destroyer player at this point. Oh, and we've just taken out the Megami with a beautiful set of torpedoes there, straight up to 97.5, pretty much 1,000 damage. And having started the game so badly, and currently still having so little health, I was very pleased to get close to 100k with those torpedo strikes. But now, as long as we stay composed, we plan our attacks, I don't see why we can't continue to get more. That was my thought process at this point. Just ensure I maintain that 5.4k minimum. But where possible, look for every opportunity to get some torpedoes off. But never, unless absolutely I have no choice, at the expense of being detected. Because certainly not in this situation, I just can't afford to take any hits at all. So I've got to be very careful at this point. Again, constantly looking at the minimap when firing torps. Nothing worse, and thankfully I haven't done it in a destroyer yet. Letting your torps go, only to find a friendly sail past seconds later because you've not been paying attention to what's going on. But again, these torps look pretty decent. We might get maybe 1 or 2 hits. And there we are, 2 hits, so we go straight up to 120,500 damage, coming under fire from secondaries. But again, trying to re-establish that distance to become undetected. And this game is pretty much all but wrapped up. I mean, we started quite poorly. Went for the A cap, had no support. Perfect example of what happens if you head after a cap on your own and you don't have that mutual support in a destroyer of this sort of nature. You can be punished very quickly. Certainly when you're spotted, especially when the enemy have committed so many ships to that cap. But we hung in there, never give in. Constantly kept looking for opportunities, and ultimately I've got a couple of sink-ins, have contributed to the game, and in doing so looks like it's going to assist our team in winning, and who knows what would have happened if I'd have died early. Tempting at this point, certainly when you see a low health battleship like that, to sneak off with a couple of shots, but just remember what your priorities are. You're always better from a stealthy position, but I'm going to fire nonetheless. But I'm in a point now I feel pretty confident that with a French battleship ramming into the enemy there, I wasn't the main sort of point of concern, and I can get a couple of shots off. We're still at 7k, so I can lose detection pretty quickly. Was considering torps there, but with a friendly shimmer, I wasn't going to risk it. So we've lost 5 ships. The enemy are down to 3 ships. Really strong caps lead. I mean, it would take an absolute miracle now if we lost this game. It would be an absolute disgrace. Give up the game and go and play Minecraft. No offence to any Minecraft players. But it's been a good game. Torpedo Boost, again, it's personal preference. I mean, I've used it on this occasion and done so. Hopefully you've seen that to good use. But again, smoke, absolutely vital. And again, perfect example of maybe letting my torps off a little bit too early. Or possibly a little bit too late. We're lucky for that shimmer. And that's it, game over. So decent game. An enjoyable game. Didn't think I'd last long, but ultimately got just under 200,000 silver, just under 2,000 experience, and 120,500 damage. 10 torpedo strikes and 2 kills with 6 flooding. So not a bad game. And we'll see where that puts us on the board. Second on the board, 2 kills. So all in all, I was pretty pleased with that, considering how I started. Right then guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to, please like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out and helps me develop. And I'll see you again soon. Take care.